Okay. You press F10. This is obviously chapter 3, part 2. You press F10, where we left off before, to step through each line of code. Now, unfortunately, when I pressed F10, that stopped recording because that's the hotkey for Camtasia Studio. So what I had to do is go down here, and I'm going to have to set a breakpoint at each one of these until I can figure out how to fix that, so that when I press F5, it will just run to the next breakpoint. It'll be just like you're pressing F10. All right, so my code is broken here. It's stopped, so I'm going to press F5. You press F10, and there it goes. Now remember what happened. I didn't have the text property on these other two. That's why I only got the first one. I had .text on it. And now what will happen is it'll take that full name variable, which contains the entire name now, because what happens with when you're concatenating, it takes these first two on either side of the plus sign, which is an overloaded operator. In math, in the context of mathematics, that's an addition sign. In the context of a string, that's a concatenation symbol, meaning it's going to join what's on the left with what's on the right. Once it does that, this evaluates from left to right, just like a normal mathematical expression. Now here we have one string. We have the first name plus the text, the space. Now we run into another plus sign, another concatenation symbol. So it takes this one string that's now over here on the left, because it's already concatenated that, and joins it with this one. All right, so now all of a sudden we have this on the left of another concatenation symbol. So it just keeps going and going and going until it gets the whole thing joined together. So if I press F5 again, hopefully my form will pop back up, and you can see there's the entire name. Okay, so we got that. All right, let's stop this. I'm going to remove all of my breakpoints. Always set a breakpoint when you're having trouble. Always, because you can figure out what's going on mathematically or logically. It helps you find logic errors very quickly. Where's debug? There it is. I'm going to delete all my breakpoints. You could toggle them on and off. All right. So that takes care of the strings. Now I'm not going to get into a lot of the detail. A lot of this stuff you should already know from your 150 class. Like you can't assign integer variable into a string, vice versa, without converting it. And there are conversion methods we'll get into. You need to explicitly convert from one type to another. Okay, now let's talk about something that always happens on these forms that gets people kind of confused. Whenever you're using a text box, the text property into which the user's typing, that's where it's stored, is of type string. If you're going to grab this and try to place it into a numeric variable and do some math on it, you got to convert it first. It won't explicitly convert it, and you shouldn't expect it to do that. There are instances where it will. I completely disagree with it. Always do explicit conversions, and we're going to talk about how to do that. But anyway, here's the way it works. It goes from string to numeric and back to string again, because you have to output it somewhere. So I'm going to use the same form, and I'm probably going to change the names of the output of these labels. Now, as you've noticed here for numerics on page 132, we're looking at integers, and these are primitive types. There are others that are like floats and booleans and char and that kind of stuff. There's a double, which integer is a positive or negative number without a decimal component. A double is a positive or negative number with a decimal component. And a decimal holds real numbers with great precision, more so than a double. It's stored in a decimal variable rounded to 28 digits of precision. That's pretty big. I don't know when you'd need that. Maybe if you're doing scientific work, calculating pi or whatever. I mean, there are times when you might need it. As you can see here on page 132, they have numeric variables like integer hours worked equals 40 or assignment 40. Double temperature assignment 87.6. So it takes decimal values. And you can promote and demote. You can demote things, like you can take you can't demote, you can promote. You can take an integer and stick it into a double, and that's fine because the integer doesn't have a decimal component. So if it's 6, it's going to make it a double and put 6.0 in there. So that's no problem. If you start trying to demote from a double to an integer, you got problems. You really can't do that without explicitly doing, and you'll get loss of data. typically that way. Let's see. Now you can use cast operators. Casting is just opening and closing parentheses. So let's go into code behind here. I'm gonna need to change this a little bit. Let's see what kind of a example they're using. Bear with me just a moment. Getting a number from a text box, blah, blah, blah. Oh, I guess I'll just do something similar to the calculating the average. Alrighty, so let's make this first test score. I'm going to call it score 1. Okay. Doesn't matter that they're called something else, their name is something else. Not in this case. It would if you were sending it to me, but not just for this. Score 3. And average. Actually, I think I'll do something a little bit different. I'm going to change this to item 1. And we're just going to add these up. Item 2. Come on. Item 3. And I changed my mind because we're doing this in a chapter 2 and another in CIS 212. I just remembered that. I'm going to give it away. And this will be sum or total. Let's call it total. All right, so this will be like $3.20, $5, whatever the user puts in there. They're going to put 3 numbers in, item values, prices, and then we're going to add them up, and we may calculate tax too. I don't know, and stick it in there. That might be something we can do. All right, I'm going to change this to calculate. I'm just going to put total. Get total. How about that? Ampersand again. Total. Okay. And exit stays the same. Okay, so we'll save this. All right, so let's look at what we're going to do here. Since this is dollars and cents and they're not going to be very big, I'm going to use doubles for this. All right, so I'm going to go to view code and action click. That's where I'm doing my thing. So I'm going to get rid of all of that. I'll leave that because it's got my output name in there. So we're going to take the 3. So let's see, let's create a variable of type double. I'm going to call it sum. So you start off with, as you already know, if you read the book, the chapter so far, start off with the data type. I want to use double because it's dollars and cents. And then it's going to be, let's see, I'll just call it total. Yeah, price. And I give it a value of 0.0. Always in my class, when you create a variable, you got to initialize it to something, always. Now this green line just means that I haven't used it yet. It's just sort of like a warning letting me know that it's, because you can, a lot of times you'll create variables and not use them, and you can go back and it'll help you point out which ones are not being used. So, and I'm also going to create, and you can do multiple variables here. So I'm going to do this, and I'll have total price. I'll have item 1. I hope this works. I don't use this very much. Item 2. Whoops. It might not let me do this since I'm initializing them. Item 3. See if it works. Probably ain't gonna let me do that, is it? Nope. All right, well, so much for that. There's probably a way to do it. I just don't ever do it, so I don't know how to do it. Stick this on here, stick this on here, and put my semicolons in. That'll be fine. The book shows you a way to do it, but it's probably without initializing, or if you're going to initialize them all the same thing, you could probably do it that way without the initialization statement. Okay, now I need a const. what's const do? It tells you that there's a constant coming. Constant is a value that once initialized, and it does it just like a regular variable at the beginning of the program. Once it's initialized to a value, it cannot change. I'm going to make this a double, and I'm going to call it tax rate. And we may have done something on this already. I'm going to call this 10%. Whoops, 10%. I'm going to initialize it to that because that's what the tax is going to be in this program. All right, so I have my variables initialized. I'm doing this just for you, just so you get used to commenting. That's a useless comment. Anybody who's a programmer knows that that's what you're doing there. But remember, comments are 2 forward slashes. Remember that? Multi-line comments are / asterisk, and then to close it, asterisk /. Okay, so there's that. And so what the user's going to do is type in 3 item prices, and when he or she clicks the button, it's going to sum up all those and multiply them by 10% and add that back to the total. Okay, so we can do it that way. All right, so we need to get the value for item 1. Now, where's this value located? Well, it's located in that first text box there. And we called it text first name. I'm going to leave it at that name. Well, I guess I could change it. It doesn't make any sense that way. Text item 1. No code associated with it, so no code behind. All right, then item 2. Just makes more sense this way. Having to type in names, that doesn't make any sense. And then item 3. Okay. And I think we're good here. Now let's go back to the code behind. Okay, so item 1 is this, and what's the name of the text box? Text item 1, and what's the property we're grabbing? Text. Now that's not going to work because this, and it's not going to let you do it, it cannot implicitly convert type string to a double, so we have to be able to do that. There are a couple different ways to do it. Let's see if we can do it like this, double. It may not let me do this. See what it says. There are other ways to do it. I think that only works when you're converting one numeric type to another. All right, so let's try. I know the way I do it all the time. Let's try double dot parse. Parse will throw an error, which we're going to, or an exception, which we're going to look at in a minute, if the number will not convert to if the string will not convert to a number. If they type in ABC123 and we're not filtering that out and trying to handle it before we hit this button, then that's going to throw an error, and we have to have a try-catch arrangement or what they call an exception, to gracefully handle that and not hose the program. Okay, so that's one way. You can also use convert.toDouble. Convert is an intrinsic method. I use that quite a lot, but you can do it this way. Text 2. Now I'm copy and pasting because I'm lazy. If you're going to do this, make sure you change everything correctly, or you'll have a lot of variable names and text box names and things like that. You'll have a lot of problems. Okay, so what we've done here, we have explicitly told it, pull the text of type string out of here. You can't assign a string into a numeric or a double. So it has to be converted using the double object, its parse method, which takes one argument, and convert that to a double and assign it into that double. So now, assuming it is convertible to a number, we have those 3 numbers. Now we can take total price and do this. Assign these 3 into it. Item 1 plus this. Now we're looking at, since this is numeric, this is an addition, right? Plus, the plus sign is not an overloaded operator in this case. Item 3. Okay, so that gives me my total before taxes. Now I can do this. Total price equals total price plus total price times tax rate. So what we're doing is we're coming up with the tax, and then we're adding it back to itself. Now, there are overloaded or shortcut mathematical operators, and let's talk about that for a minute. I'm going to save this real quick. Whenever you're doing a plus like this, like you're doing something plus itself, you can use plus equals. That comes out to what we just did. But this will say total price plus equals total price. I think that's right. Equals total price plus that. So, I mean, it comes out the same thing. I won't get into that too much right now. I'm not at the end of this lecture. So if I wanted to do, let's just say this, if I want to do this, let's say I want to do total price equals total price plus 1, okay, which is basically what we're doing here. I mean, it's total price. I could do plus equals that, okay. This is the same as this. It's just a shortcut. Plus equals 1. All right. Now, if you're just adding 1 to it, you can do what's called a unary operator. This is a binary operator, by the way. This expands out to that. Okay. There's what's called a unary operator, which means one thing, one character. If you're just adding 1 to it, you can do that. Total price plus plus. If you're subtracting 1 from, you can do total price minus minus. Now, the unary operator, you can put it on either side. If you put it on the left side, that's a pretest operation, which means before, if this were being used in a loop count or something of that nature, it would go ahead and increment it before it was looked at. If you put it on the right side, that's called a post-test operation, unary operation, which would mean it would go ahead and look at this variable in a loop to see what its value is, but only afterwards would it increment it by 1. Okay, same thing with the minus minus. You have a lot of different ones. Now, if you're going to add something different than 1, like if you're going to add 3.5 or whatever, something other than 1, say 3, you can't use a unary operator. You have to use this binary operator here. There's plus equals, there's minus equals, there's modulus equals, there's multiplication equals, there's division equals. So these are just shortcuts that people use to save typing. So you need to, and it's in chapter 3, I believe. You need to make sure you take a look at that and get in the habit, because you'll see all of that stuff. Okay, so got that out of the way. Unary and binary operators. So now we have to basically display or output our text. Now, remember, we're going to output it in label output text, but we went from string of type string here, and we converted it to numbers, stored it in these numeric variables, did our calculations. Now we want to output the result. It has to be of type text. Well, you're not going to be able to do that until you convert this. And you can do it like this. You can use the same method. I think it's going to be, what's it going to be? .toString. See if that works. I mean, I know I can use convert to do it that way. Does that work like that? See if that works. See what it does. That just temporarily converts this to a string and sticks it in there. I can also do this, convert .toString. Whoops. ToString. And I can put my variable total price in here, which I'll do if this one doesn't work. You can do it either way. There are reasons to do it one way or the other, and that has to do with exception handling, and I like to use convert a lot, but that's just my preference. So there are multiple ways to do this. All right, I'm just going to turn it into a comment so we don't have to look at it. Let us see how this is going to work. Press F5, see if we get any errors. How about that? Okay, so I'll do 25, 75, and 10.12, and 3.75. I don't have a calculator handy, do I? Let's check it before we go in here and see what we're supposed to be getting. 25.75, well, can't use a regular calculator, plus 10.12, 12 plus 3.75. 39.62, sound about right? Get total. Ooh, I guess my calculations is off here. Let me check it again. 25.7. Oh, wait a minute. I forgot. I added 10% tax to it. So let's go back and do that again. 25.75 plus 10.1. 5.75 plus 12 plus 3.75 is 39.62 before taxes. 962 times 1.1, which is $1.10 tax. 43.58. Now I have $43.58. 582.582. So what we want to do is we want to round that to 2 decimal places and put a dollar sign on it. Dress it up a bit. Okay. Let's see what page that's on. Now, a lot of this stuff you should already know. I'm kind of skipping. Oh, the plus equals minus equals, that's on page 140. You really need to know that. The plus plus minus minus stuff is probably going to be, might be in another chapter, but I'd take a look at that. Let's see where we go here. It's getting here, I think. Yeah, here it is. You can use these little characters to format your strings on page 150. You got a number format in N. Here's N2 to specify on the next page. Let's see what they're doing. Calculate, sell price, blah, blah, blah. Here it is. So in the to string, I can actually put N2 in there, and it will go ahead and convert that when as it's converting it back to a string. It'll round it to 2 decimal places and put a dollar sign on it before it sticks it in the text property, right? Page N2, to string return value. So looks like if I want to convert it to a currency, I guess I'd use C2. Yeah, I think so. Yeah, C2. That'd give me 2 decimal places, and it'll be currency, because N is for number, C is for currency if you look on page 150 in that table right there. So that's what I'm going to use, C2 in my code. So let's go back to code. So right in here I'm going to put C2. It can be upper or lowercase c2. All right. Let's try it and see what happens. That's pretty quick. Pretty easy to do. A lot easier than some of the other things I'm looking at. I don't remember what I use. I'm just going to use 10, 10, 10, 10, 10. It doesn't matter because it's going to throw that tax on there. See? 33.33. Because it's $3.03 tax apparently. Okay? And you can put a clear button on here. You really should have that. Let's look at putting a clear button on here real quick. It's not a big deal, but we'll go ahead and do it. Now, you really should have these kind of operations separate from your exit button, and I'm going to have to unlock the controls to put this on here. And it is somewhat separate, but it's not far enough. You need at least the same amount on the right and the bottom and the top, so this probably needs to go up. I mean, if you're talking about good GUI design, probably needs to go up just a little bit. It's okay on the left, so that's okay. That probably needs to go over just a bit. I mean, you could do it like that if you wanted to. It's never going to get that big. So now I can kind of get these spaced out a little bit. Yeah, that's okay. So you need a little bit of space between your exit button and your calculations. That's probably not enough right here. I need to remove that from this set. Remove that, that, and that. I'm holding down my shift key to do that with, by the way. You can do multiple selection like that. And that's more like it right there. Okay. Let me lock my controls back. And you need a little bit of room in between here. That's probably too much, but we're just playing anyway. Lock the controls. This is now going to be called what? Button BTN clear. Right, and I'm going to go down here and put clear, and I'll put the ampersand before the L, so the underscore will be under the L. That'd be your alt key combination. Ampersand LEAR. Okay. Right. Let me double click on this to create the event handler. And our goal is to clear everything. So there's, you can just do like text item 1 dot text equals string dot empty. So it remembered my last selection. It's pretty cool. And you could assign text 2 and text 3 to this, or you could do string empty again. Just depends on what you want to do. I'm just going to go ahead and do them all, because there might be other things you want to do, like for example button states, which I guess I could cover now. Maybe kind of getting ahead of myself here. I don't think I'm going to cover the button states right now. That's just a logical thing. So convert. Whoop. Save it. Let's run it. F5. Oh, it popped right up. How about that? So this will be 10.34. Whoops. 66.57. 30. And then we do get total. All right, that adds 10% tax. Cleared everything but that, so I got to add that in there. All right. So that'll be label output dot text, and we're going to wipe that out as well. Now the problem is, and we'll get into this later, one good way to resolve this problem. Now you can put a try catch in here, and I'm probably going to need to do that right now. But there are better ways to do it, in my opinion. You just keep them from being able to click the button that would cause the error. If you don't have anything in here, in these boxes, these text boxes, and the user bangs on get total, it's going to cause an exception, because you're trying to do math on an empty string. It can't be converted to a number and that sort of thing. So one way to do that, and I think it's in this chapter, they talk about try catch. Let's see where that would be. It's before the math stuff. There's some math stuff in here. I'm not going to talk about the math class right now. We did a name constant already. We got to go back and look at and I'm not going to talk about background colors and images. That's all fluff stuff. Here they are. There's the tab order. Bear with me, I'm trying to find it. I'm running out of space here. Well, that's not it. I must have overlooked it. Already went to the try catch. Should be next. Well, I'll just do it myself. These are called exceptions, okay? Errors are now called exceptions. So if you've got some code, and it happens a lot, where you're trying to do some math, or you're going to try to open a file or connect to a database, you need to be able to handle the inevitability of the fact that it's going to not work, and it's going to cause your program to hose. The last thing you want to do is have the user enter in a bunch of data for a database entry, all of a sudden have it throw an exception and shut down the program. Because if you don't handle it, your program, the outermost bit of your program the operating system will handle it, and it's not a very pretty sight. So this is called a try-catch block. Now, block of code always has to be bounded by an opening and closing set of curly braces, right? Okay. Excuse me. Wow, allergies. Okay, so there's my try block, and then there's my catch block, and I think it's EX exception. I'm gonna call it EX. That's my. So what we're doing, it's like saying double item 2. This is exception, which is a data type. Is really an object, it's not a data type. That's actually an object, not a data type per se. We're going to talk about that more. Exception, and then this is the parent, and this is the child. This is the parent, and this is the child. So I'm inheriting from the double object, and the baby's name is, the child's name is item 3. Here I'm inheriting from the exception object, and the child's name is EX. Okay, and it inherits everything from that exception object, and I can actually display an error message based on what kind of error it is. Or I could do a generic and then just catch whatever's there, like divide by 0, that kind of thing. I could do, let's see, message box. I'm going to pop up a message. Whoops, hit the caps lock. Pop up a message box. And I'm going to try to display using the show method. That's what you have to do if you want to show a message box. You have to actually cause it to, and that's a method actually of the message box object. I think I talked to you, there are 21 different implementations of that. I'm going to use the first one. I'm going to do ex dot, let's try to string, and it's probably not, it may not let me do this. I hope it will. Okay, so that's going to tell me, it's going to pull that out of the ex object, which is an exception object. So there you have it. You need to do that. Now let's see what happens. See if I can get it. I mean, I can actually throw one manually. I don't want to get into all that right now. Maybe this will work. If I try to, if the user hits get total and it starts trying to do object, math on empty strings and convert them to numbers, it's not going to work. So double parse will probably throw an error. Let's see what happens. Yep. There's the message. It's not very, not very pretty. That's actually what it's telling the user. That's not going to be very pretty. So, I could go in here and do something like this. Instead of doing message box, show ex.string, because it's really, that's more for the programmer than for the user. I could say invalid number or invalid string could not convert. There we go. Entry. Let's do that. Entry could not convert user input to a number. All right. Now, there are different things you could do with message box. You can put special headers and special icons and special buttons and all sorts of things. This will do for now. So let's try it again. See if this is a little more user friendly. See, that does make a little bit more sense. Now, obviously, I would want to put an icon in there and put an OK button, that kind of thing. We're not to that point yet, but another way to handle this would be to toggle these button states. So when this thing first comes up, this is disabled. Clear is enabled, this is disabled. Then you got to be able to look at keystrokes and see if there's anything in all three of these. Another way to do that would be to put an if in here. You could strip out all the text and make sure there are no spaces. But this gets into key up, key down events. We won't get into that right now, but there's a way to handle that where that it's just all automatically disabled until they do something. Again, you could look at the form and say, well, if there's nothing to clear, we'll keep this disabled. So these would probably be disabled by default until the user puts some information in here. All right, so once you have information in here, this would be enabled. That would still be disabled until I calculate something. If they backspace here, it would wipe out everything, so it would fire that event. So there's a lot of things you can do to sort of make it easier on yourself and the user. It's better if the user doesn't have to see a message, but sometimes you can't help it. Okay, so let's go ahead and run it, and let's put our numbers in there. So if I put, 1575, and I put, and we're going to fix these tab orders in a minute. I put ABC 123, and I put $66.75. It's still going to throw an error. That try catch is going to work. See? And it's this number right here. You could actually determine which one it is and put the focus there, because you can set focus. All right, let's do that real quick. Let me exit this. I'm not going to programmatically decide which one's the problem. I'm going to just I'm going to do it in the second one. So let's assume for discussion purposes that I know which one it is. I can put text item 2, which I would already know through programmatically deducing which one it is, dot focus to that control. See if it's supposed to be set to true or false. I think it's just that. Okay, different language, a little bit different. All right, so I'm going to put 10, 10, and here I'm going to put ABC 1, 2, 3. That will not convert to a number. And $66.75. All right, so they get their error message, and guess what it does? It puts the cursor here, and you can also automatically select all of that using properties. We won't do that, but you can do it that way. So I'm going to go ahead and fix this and make it 55.75. Now I should get my total output here plus the the 10% tax, and then I can clear everything. And what we should do right here in clear is we should put the text back, the focus back to that first text box. That's just something we should do in clear. So let's do that. That's just making it easy on the user, right? So run it again. F5, $10.10, $15.75. Whoops, $15.75. Why is it doing that to me? My numlock's off. 75. Oh, the tab order. I keep hitting my tab button because I'm used to that. And $66.75. All right, we got that, and now we go to clear, and it puts the focus back up here for the user. See the flashing cursor? The user to start putting input in again. So that's not bad. Okay, we need to look at how to set the tab order, because you put these controls in different ways, different orders. All right, so let's go ahead and go to View up here. Let me get my form up. Go to View, Tab Order. All right, what it's doing is it's showing you the order that the tab key does. Now, labels can't accept a tab, or focus. So when you put them in the tab order, if you want the tab control to go here, this is 0, then this has to be the next one in the tab order. It will just say, uh-oh, this is a label, it's at tab order 0, it can't accept focus, so I'm going to throw it over here, which is where it belongs. This would need to be 2, that would need to be 3, this would need to be 4, that would need to be 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10. These two can't take focus, but I would go ahead and put it after these, because what it's going to do is this one's going to throw it to that one, that one's going to throw it to this one. Okay, so 1, 2, and this would be 2, this would be 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. That would be, depending on what you want to do, I just do them in that order. 8, 9, and finally 10. 0, 1, so that would try to get focus because it's a tab order 0, it would throw it here. Then when you hit tab, it's going to go here, but that's a label, it cannot accept focus, so it's going to go over to here. You hit tab again, that's 4, it's next in the tab order, but it cannot accept focus, so it goes over to 5, right? And then you hit tab again, that can't take focus, so it throws it over 7, that can't take focus because it throws it over 8. 8 can take focus, and tab, 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 tab. All right, let's see if that works. All right, you have to think about these things. So there's my focus is there. I hit tab, 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 tab. That's exactly what we want. These are all labels. They cannot accept focus, so they throw it to the next control in the tab order that can accept focus. So that's what's going on with that. Okay. Let's see, I'm not going to get into background images. Those are just controls. Like, that's pretty easy. Container objects, you can dress up your form by grouping things together, but I'm not going to deal with that. And I believe that is the end of my lecture on Chapter 3. And then you have a project that's called Science Builder here. And basically, you're going to be concatenating strings and putting it in that label down there at the bottom with spaces in between them. Okay, that's really very easy. You can go back and watch my lecture again. Oh, let's turn off this. You always want to turn that off. Okay, well, that's it, and I will see you again, or you will hear me again when I lecture on Chapter 4 the following week. Have a good day.